Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by...
Hey, Ron, it's really hot.
I quite agree.
Oh, yeah. It's so hot, I saw a bird pull a worm out of the ground with an oven mitt.
Well, it's so hot I just saw 2 fire hydrants fighting over a dog.
Man.
George, Betty, come on in.
Oh, it's a wretched night out.
Here, let me have your coats.
Where's Helen, Arnold?
In making herself beautiful.
Everybody's going to be at the club at 8:30.
Oh, swell. I wonder what's keeping that delivery boy.
Delivery boy?
Yes, I had a corsage made up for Helen. It was supposed to be delivered an hour ago. If you two don't mind, I'll run out and get it. Helen should be out in a few minutes.
Sure, go right ahead. Oh, that thunder, it's frightening.
Yeah, thunder never hurt anybody.
Just the same, I wish it would stop. Turn up the radio, George, and let's dance.
Well, I'm back. Isn't Helen ready yet?
I haven't heard a sound from her.
Say, I better go in and hustle her up a bit. I thought sure she'd be ready by now.
That's funny that she's not ready yet. Helen's usually so prompt.
George, Betty, call a doctor, quick.
Yeah, what is it? What's happened?
It's Helen here in the bathtub. She's fallen and hit her head.
Fallen? Good heavens.
Here, let's have a look.
Help me get her out of here.
In here on the bed. There.
Call a doctor, quick, please.
It's too late, Arnold. Helen's dead.
Huh?
Cruel blow on her head.
I can't believe it.
Say, that's odd.
What?
But Helen would be taking a bath with her makeup on. You put your makeup on after you take a bath.
Seems logical. You ought to know. And look, there's rain here on the floor by this bedroom window.
Lots of it. Hey, it's being opened wide.
What? What does it all mean, George?
Well, I don't know what it means yet, but I intend to find out right now. Betty, would you mind going back into the bathroom and closing the door behind you? Then scream as loudly as you can.
I don't mind, but why?
Never mind. Just do as I say.
All right, if you think it'll help.
Just as I thought. Arnold, have you got a gun?
Oh, sure, it's there in the desk drawer. Be careful, it's loaded.
Well, now that I performed a little experiment. George, what are you doing with that gun?
I'm covering Arnold with it until the police arrive. You see, he's just murdered his wife.
How did George know Arnold killed his wife? We'll have the solution in just a moment. But first...
Yes, how did he know? What the heck?
Sorry, I wanted to make a point.
And your point is?
Lawrence J. Peter once said, when in doubt or danger, run in circles, scream and shout.
Okay.
You don't get it?
Oh, I get it.
Then what?
Who the heck is Lawrence J. Peter?
Lawrence Johnston Peter was a teacher and hierarchaeologist who is best known for the formulation of the Peter Principle.
Oh, I see.
And now for the solution of our mystery.
But, George, how? When did he do it?
Remember when Arnold left for the florist? He went all right, but he also went around to the back of the house and climbed into Helen's bedroom through the window. He found her in the bathroom, but she wasn't taking a bath. She was putting on her makeup. Thanks to your observation, Betty. When I asked you to go into the bathroom and scream, I had a reason. You see, we heard you scream. We didn't hear Helen. Therefore, she didn't scream. Now I ask you, who could have entered Helen's bedroom without frightening her in the least way? Simply a bit of logic, my dear. Her husband.
Okay, I just have to know. What is the Peter Principle?
People tend to rise to ranks where they are not competent.
And that related to our story how?
Not to the story, to you.
I still don't get it.
He means that you are as dumb as a brick.
Well said, Opie. Bravo.
What's that you said?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Today's show is a collection of stories with kind of a theme. All of the segments today have some sort of detective work. We spend some time talking about detective fiction, and then I review the audiobook from the Billy Harney series by James Patterson. This one's pretty good. Next up, we have a story from Yellowknife, Canada. I had a chance to do some detective work myself, and I learned about a cryptid living in the forest there. Apparently, there is a wolf-like evil spirit that roams the valley and kills people by biting their heads off. Not a great way to go. Then we'll hear Noah Yassi's story and his encounter with the beast. Our featured story is a full investigation by Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. They head to Lochmere Castle to solve the mystery of the Limping Ghost. All things considered, I think you're going to enjoy the show. Now, I'm going to ask for your advice. Facebook is making some policy changes as to how podcasters can post their content. I'm thinking the changes might not be for me. I don't have a ton of followers there, and I've been thinking I may not continue to support that platform. I've been toying with TikTok and Instagram. Your input on this would be most welcome. Okay then, so let's get to the show and learn a bit about the detective drama. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. This time, we're going to talk about detective fiction. It is one of the most popular genres and has been for centuries. But where did it come from? Detective fiction can be traced back to the 1800s, around the time of the Industrial Revolution. Before this time, people lived in smaller towns and worked and socialized in closer circles. So people knew everyone that they came in contact with, for the most part. But with the rise of industrial jobs, more people began moving to cities, which led to interacting with more strangers on a daily basis. This led to a heightened sense of suspicion and uncertainty, and yes, more crime. It was around this time when police forces were first established. London's police force came into being in 1829, and New York City got its police force in 1845. With more people living in cities and crime rates on the rise, the setting was right for the detective to be born. The first modern detective was most likely Edgar Allan Poe's Murder in the Rue Morgue. It is a short story published in 1841 that introduced the world to the private detective. In fact, detective fiction was so new that the word detective hadn't been used in English before. The first detective novel, The Moonstone, in 1868, was written by Wilkie Collins. This novel is significant not just because it's the first detective novel, but also because it established many of the metaphors and attributes of the detective. The Moonstone's detective character, Sergeant Cuff, was based on real-life Inspector Jonathan Witcher, one of the first detectives of Scotland Yard. But the first detective character who really shaped the way we see literary detectives to this day is probably someone you've already guessed. Sherlock Holmes. Not only is he the most famous detective character to be ever written, Sherlock Holmes is one of the most popular characters in fiction ever. And of course, the rest is history. Have you ever noticed that every show on TV is a detective drama? Which leads us to our audiobook review. The Coldest Case, The Past Has a Long Memory by James Patterson. Someone is committing random murders across Chicago and making sure that detectives Billy and Patty Harney are first on the crime scene. They're not a couple, but rather are siblings. Here is a clip from this exciting original audio drama from Audible.
Patty, hurry up already!
Forget it, Billy!
What, are you still afraid of water?
No, I'm not afraid of water. I'm afraid of drowning.
That's why we got the boats! Come on!
And who's gonna drive it? You? Remember what happened at that safari water park that time? You flipped over our bumper boat.
We were 9, and flipping over was kind of the point. Get in here. Come on, Patty, we gotta go.
Billy, the Coast Guard will be here soon. Let's just wait for them here on the dock, where it's warm and sturdy and there are no sharks.
It's Lake Michigan. A shark is exactly as likely to be on the dock as in the water. Now get in here.
Ugh, crap. There he is, due north at 20 knots.
20 knots. You're afraid of the water, but you speak boat?
You know I had a crush on that sailor that time. I learned.
That was the 7th grade.
I didn't say he liked me back. Turn on the siren.
Hand me the bullhorn. This is Chicago PD. Pull your boat over immediately.
What do you want him to pull over to, Billy? The curb?
Shut up. I've never done this on the water before, okay? Turn off your engine, now!
You really put the fear of God into him.
You got a better idea, Patty?
About 1 million. But not sure any of them are relevant anymore since the guy is stopping by that buoy. Look. Don't get too close. He may be armed.
How do you expect me to board the suspect's boat unless I get close?
How about swimming a few yards, old man?
You know how cold that water is?
It's a polar plunge. It'll be great for your skin. Man up. And be careful. The anonymous call into the precinct said the suspect was armed and dangerous. Wait, what's he doing?
Oh, he's taking off his shoes. He's diving in?
What are you waiting for, Billy? Go in after him.
Look, could you just check if there's a wetsuit on board this thing?
Oh my God, relax. That guy will probably kill you before you get hypothermia. Now go.
You pushed me? Really? Oh, it's freezing. Hey! You are under arrest. What? Chicago PD, come with me.
Get off me, dude! Let go! Stop!
Give me your hand, Billy. I'll pull you both up. Hands where I can see him.
Is this part of the game? That was fake down there, right?
You have the right to remain silent, which I seriously encourage you to take advantage of.
Are you the camera crew I was told about? He said you guys be dressed as cops. Those convincing uniforms.
What? Who said?
Q107. Mornings with Mike?
Billy, are you okay over there? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?
Wait, these handcuffs feel real. The DJ didn't say anything about this. Well, was that real under the water? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Patty, give me a towel.
Here, just take my jacket. What was underwater? Why are you both so freaked out?
It was a body.
What?
There's a damn body tied to the bottom of the buoy.
As I said, the siblings are thrust into the case. But what connects the victims, and why is the killer leaving clues behind with each body? Billy and Patty are scrambling to stop the next killing when their father, Chief of Detectives Dan Harney, is kidnapped. But in their race to track him down, they uncover pieces of his past that simply can't be true. Could their own flesh and blood be covering up a dark secret? James Patterson does it again with the latest entry in the Billy Harney series. Packed with twists, turns, and shocking revelations, the cold case grabs you in minutes and doesn't let go. This one has an all-star cast including Beau Bridges, Kevin Pollak, Jordan Bridges, and Patton Oswalt as himself. The crackling performances are paired with a jaw-dropping, immersive sound design that puts you in the heart of the action. This one truly is a fun listen. But it does come with a warning. It contains strong language, violence, and mature content. Discretion is advised. A bit about James Patterson. He is an amazing author. Among his works are the Alex Cross series, Michael Bennett, Women's Murder Club, NYPD Red, as well as many standalone thriller novels. Patterson's books have sold more than 425 million copies, and he was the first person to sell 1 million ebooks in 2016. His books are fast-paced, relentless, and mind-boggling. And if that appeals to you, head to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can have The Coldest Case, The Past Has a Long Memory, for free. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook in 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out the service. You can stream or download thousands of included audiobooks, podcasts, and Audible originals in the Plus catalog. There is so much to do that you will never run out of material, so to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. You'll be helping me out, and you'll get a free book. Thank you, Audible.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
This story comes from Noah Yassi, who is a longtime resident of Yellowknife, Canada. It takes place in the Nahanni National Park. Now, you know that I had to do some research, because that's what I do. Nahanni National Park Reserve is in the Northwest Territories of Canada. It's approximately 300 miles west of Yellowknife. The centerpiece of the park is the South Nahanni River. Tribal legends describe a wolf-like evil spirit that roams the valley and kills people by biting off their heads. Though the so-called Headless Valley lies in Canada, its resident monster has also been sighted in Alaska at least once by an American mechanic who described it as a wolf on steroids. The cast and crew of the American TV show Alaska Monsters claim to have narrowly escaped an encounter with the beast. Now, why did I tell you all this? Well, let's talk about that more after we hear Noah's story. I received an email from Noah that said that he wanted to share a story with the podcast, but didn't feel up to writing it. That was no problem for me, and we quickly set up a phone call. The connection? It was awful. Noah said that the cell service in his area has been really spotty at best over the last few weeks. We muscled through all of the distraction, but recording Noah was impossible. In the end, I took the bits and pieces and wrote what you're about to hear, of course, after obtaining Noah's approval. Here is Noah's story. Life here is simple and relaxed. We do have our moments, but for the most part, everything depends on the weather. Vacations are usually short, but always well planned. The last thing you want is to be trapped in the wilderness or out of town. Yellowknife is a capital city, but the population is only about 20,000 people. Compare those numbers to an American city, and I think you get the idea. I was about 10 years old when my story occurred. My family was set to head to Nahanni. We go there every summer to enjoy camping, fishing, hiking, and a host of cultural activities that you can only find there. The local tribes depend on the summers to make it through the winters, so they go all out. One morning, we planned the hike and packed enough food and water to make a day of it. It was still a bit chilly in the mountains in June, but worth it because the sights are nothing short of breathtaking in spring. We had just finished lunch when snow began to fall. It is not unheard of for snow in June, but it is rare. It never lasts long, so we weren't concerned. When it began to get heavy, we decided to turn back and finish the hike on another day. Most likely tomorrow, all of this would be gone. It was then my dad noticed the tracks in the snow. They were wolf-like, but the spacing and size were off. They were much too large and spread out. The night before, we had been telling each other ghost stories around the campfire. One of the stories was about a wolf spirit that is said to inhabit the area. One thing for sure, these tracks were following us. My dad took the lead, and we all followed close behind. There was my mom, 2 sisters, my brother Joshua, and I. We were coming down a steep but passable downslope when we heard the first sounds. At first, it was a guttural growl. Something out of those Wolfman movies of the early 1970s. It became louder and more pronounced the closer we got to the valley. My dad told us to group up and stay on the path. He reached into his pack and pulled out his handgun. As we rounded the corner, we saw what was an impossibly sized, wolf-like creature. It was blocking the path and baring its teeth like some evil devil hound. My dad ordered us to back up and fired his gun into the air. The beast seemed to know what that meant and dove into the deep forest. We waited there for some time until Dad gave us the all clear. I remember I was holding on to my brother, and he was shaking. We walked on about another half hour. The snow had finally stopped, and the lower we got, the warmer it got. Soon we were laughing and talking about what we had seen. My brother said, "Dad fought the beast and won. He was the hero of the day." It was then we heard the howl scream. I don't know what else to call it. It sounded like a half-human, half-wolf bellow. It was close, too close. The sound shook all of us to the core. The girls began to cry, and I remember hanging on to my brother again. Another sound blasted out of the forest. Something definitely had died. My dad said it could have been a bull elk, but whatever it was, it sounded horrible. We picked up the pace and finally made it back to the campground. All of us were very happy that we had rented a cabin for this trip and finally felt safe again. We never finished that hike that summer, and no one ventured past the activities provided by the Inuit tribe. Noah Yassi, Yellowknife, Canada. Noah went on to say that they returned to camp there many times over the next few years and never had another experience like that again. They even ran into a pack of wolves, but as scary as that should have been, real wolves couldn't hold a candle to what they saw that day. Now I think you know why I told you about the cryptid wolf at the beginning of this story. Cryptozoologists speculate the saber wolf might actually be a remnant population of dire wolves, also called bear dogs. Descriptions of these creatures make it sound more like a wolf, but hey, who can tell with evil spirits? I mean, really. The Nahanni Valley has been steeped in folklore and mystery since it was inhabited about 9,000 to 10,000 years ago. Many tribes were afraid to settle within the region because they believed it to be an evil, haunted place inhabited by various spirit specters and devils. Those who did come here, such as the native Dene people, told of mysterious creatures lurking in the vast forests. In 1908, brothers Frank and Willie McLeod came prospecting in the valley just as many others had done before them. The two packed their gear, headed out into the wilderness, and never returned. After a year had passed, it was presumed that the brothers must have succumbed to the elements or any of the countless perils the area had to offer. Some rumors suggested the two had succeeded in finding one of the mythical veins of gold thought to dot the valley and had made their fortune. Then, just as suddenly as they had vanished, the two men were found dead along the river. Their bodies had been decapitated, and their heads, well, they were never to be found. Mysterious monster or dire wolves? I leave that to be your choice. Either way, if you ever find yourself in the Nahanni National Park, watch your back. It appears that some of the locals are looking to watch yours. To Noah, I say thank you for this story and the opportunity to chat with you, as difficult as it was. Our featured story comes from one of the most entertaining OTR series of all time, The New Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. It aired in the United States from 1939 to 1950 and ran for 374 episodes. The series was based on the Sherlock Holmes stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. For most of the show's run, the program starred Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Sir Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. The episodes were adapted or written by Edith Meiser. The thing that made this show special was the chemistry between Bruce and Rathbone. They played off each other so very well that they became the prototype to the proper way to play the famous duo. In our story today, Holmes and Watson are summoned to a castle to solve an age-old mystery. Who has been murdering the Earls of Lochmere for the past 100 years? The story is titled The Limping Ghost, and it first aired on September 3rd, 1945.
Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the New Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another of his fascinating stories about his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. You know, we're really happy to be back with you once again, and we're looking forward to getting together at this time every week from here on out. And I hope you won't mind if every once in a while I sort of get a word in edgewise about Petri wines. You know, and I really mean this, Petri wines are wonderful wines. For instance, right now, I wish I could give you a glass of Petri California port. You could hold that Petri port up to the light and look at its clear, deep red color. You could smell that luscious grape aroma. And best of all, you could taste that Petri port. What a flavor. That Petri port just sort of rolls around on your tongue, and oh boy, is that ever good. Try Petri port after dinner some evening, or try it when some friends drop in. You can serve it proudly because, after all, the name Petri is the proudest name in the history of American wines. And now let's look in on our good friend Dr. Watson and see if he's expecting us.
Come in, Mr. Bartell. You're just the man I've been expecting.
How are you, Dr. Watson? It's good to see you again.
Thank you, my boy. It's very nice to see you again, too. I've missed our Monday night visits during the last 3 months. Sit yourself down. Would you care to join me in a glass of port?
Well, thanks, Doctor. That'd be nice. You know, it seems to me after our summer vacation, a toast to the great Sherlock Holmes would be in order.
That's an excellent idea. Here you are, young fellow, lad.
Thanks. You propose the toast, Doctor.
To Sherlock Holmes, master detective and loyal friend, whose adventures have brought considerable, shall we say, fame to a certain retired doctor now living in Northern California.
I'll drink to that.
Well, now, suppose I might as well get on with tonight's story.
Which particular adventure have you selected, Doctor?
One that I call the Limping Ghost.
Sounds exciting. And, as usual, you find me saying, how did it begin?
In Baker Street on a windy December evening at the turn of the century. A young, white-faced boy sat in front of our blazing fire. And as he told us his strange story, the flickering firelight danced weird patterns on the walls. The young man was Alexander McMorris, the 7th Earl of Lochnair.
The Earl of Lochnair? Say, didn't I read in the papers the other day that the 8th Earl of Lochnair had been killed in an airplane accident?
Quite right, my boy. Even in this day and age, the tragic history of violent death seems to dog the footsteps of the Lochnair family. But to return to my story. On that December night in 1900, we heard the whole history of the Limping Ghost of Lochnair. The first Earl had lost a foot at the Battle of Flodden Field in 1513. In spite of this terrible handicap, he fought on valiantly until he died on the battlefield from loss of blood. From then on, right until the time this story begins, the Limping Ghost, clad in a suit of armor, always appeared at Lochnair Castle before and after the death of the current Earl. Yes, Mr. Bartell, it was a strange story that Sherlock Holmes and I listened to that night. A story of death and horror over the centuries, punctuated by the limping clank of ghostly armor.
Milady, I have terrible news for you. Your husband, the Earl, was killed in the explosion that destroyed Lord Darnley.
Milady, the Guy Fawkes plan to blow up the Houses of Parliament has failed. Your husband is in the Tower of London. They say he's to be hanged, torn and quartered.
Madam, I regret to inform you that your husband, on my instructions, has been arrested for murder. I have no doubt that he will hang.
And that's the story of the Lochnairs, Mr. Holmes. You were instrumental in sending my great uncle to the gallows, a fate which he richly deserved, I'm told. So it seemed only natural to come here to Baker Street and consult you now that I'm in trouble.
I shall be most happy to do anything I can to help you, sir.
I don't remember anything about your sending the Earl of Lochnair to the scaffold, Holmes.
Well, he did, Dr. Watson.
Mm-hmm.
And the servants have always sworn the ghost really did walk at midnight on the day that he was hanged.
Indeed. Now, sir, I suggest that you tell us what problem brought you here.
The ghost is walking again, Mr. Holmes. You know what that means.
According to the legend, that the present Earl will die.
Exactly. And as I'm the present Earl, you can see why I'm rather worried.
Am I to understand that you've actually seen this ghost yourself?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. The night before last, Betty, well, that is, Miss Nolan and I were sitting in the dining hall in front of the fire when we heard a strange sound up in the musicians' gallery. We looked up and in the moonlight saw a ghostly figure in armor limping towards the staircase.
Oh, gracious me. My dear sir, you're certain that you really saw it? Moonlight can play strange tricks, you know.
There wasn't any doubt about it, Doctor. We both saw and heard it.
What did you do?
I started to go towards the stairs, but as I did so, Betty screamed and then tumbled to the floor in a heap.
Fainted, I suppose.
Yes. While I was reviving her, the ghost disappeared.
Who's staying with you at Lochnair Castle at the moment?
Well, there's Betty Nolan. She's the sister of James Nolan. He looks after my estate. Betty and I are engaged to be married.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Anyone else staying with you?
Yes, a distant cousin of mine, Jerry K. McMorris, an American. He turned up in England a couple of months ago with his son Walter. They're both with me at the present.
A distant cousin?
That's right, Mr. Holmes. Actually, they're descendants of a more than usually black sheep branch of the family. I don't know how long the old man's going to be with us, though. If you ask me, he's a dying man.
Why do you say that, sir?
As far as I can gather, he's been wasting away for years. It's only a question of time before his strength fails him entirely. I was hoping perhaps you could take a look at him, Dr. Watson. That is, if I could persuade you and Mr. Holmes to come and stay at the castle for a few days.
Well, what about it, Holmes?
It's an intriguing problem, Watson. The current Earl of Lochnair would seem to be in danger. A cousin of his is dying of an obscure disease, and the ghost of Lochnair Castle is walking again. Yes, it's an irresistible invitation. I see no reason why we can't leave on the Scotch Express tonight. It's been quite a heavy fall of snow here in your absence, young man.
Quite so, and judging from the color of the sky, there's more to come.
Very angry looking.
Oh, now, as we round this bend, you'll be able to see the castle. Ah, yes. There you are, gentlemen.
Magnificent.
Yes, it's a fine place, all right, Doctor, though it cost me a great deal in upkeep. As a matter of fact, I only have one wing open. It's always been something of a problem to get servants to come and live here. See, the local villagers have a great respect for the Lochnair ghost, you know.
What servants do you have at the castle at present?
Well, cook housekeeper, Mrs. McClintock, fine old lady who's been with me for 6 years now. And then there's old Tammas. He served my family for as long as I can remember. As a matter of fact, there he is now. Hello, Tammas.
I'm glad to see you back, my lord, and that's a fact.
Oh, thank you, Tammas. Oh, these gentlemen are Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson.
Good day to you, gentlemen.
How do you do?
Good day, Thomas. Good day.
Before I take the trap round to the stables, I may as well break the news to you.
Yes? What's happened, Tammas?
It's your cousin, my lord. Poor old Mr. McMorris. He's dead.
What?
Died early this morning. God rest his soul.
Dead?
I'm very sorry that I arrived too late to be of any help.
Well, thank you for telling me, Tammas. Oh, you may take the trap round now.
Aye, sir. I'll bring the baggage plate.
So he's dead. Well, I can't say it's unexpected, but it is a shock nevertheless.
I'm sure that it must be, particularly as you yourself told us you saw the ghost of Lochnair the night before last.
In which case...
In which case, Watson, I think we may reasonably expect another visitation. Perhaps before the night is over. Shall we go in?
This is Miss Nolan, my fiancée, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and Dr. Watson.
I'm very glad to meet you.
How are you, sir?
And this is her brother, James Nolan, the manager of my estate.
How do you do, sir?
How are you, Mr. Nolan?
Much better for seeing you both up here. I'm sure it won't take you long to lay this ghost business by the heels.
Oh, well, I trust you don't overestimate our abilities, Mr. Nolan.
Alec, you've heard about your cousin, of course.
Oh, yes, my dear. Tammas told us as we drove up. Where's Walter?
He went into the village with the doctor and the body of his father.
Oh.
He should be back soon.
How's he taking it?
Very quietly.
Too quietly, if you ask me. Those Americans are pretty demonstrative people, you know, and Walter's been no exception. But he behaved very strangely this morning. When the doctor told him his father was dead, he just said, now things will start to happen, and then shut up like an oyster. I can't make head or tail of the fellow.
Yes, quite so, quite so. Mr. Holmes, I expect you and Dr. Watson would like to go to your room?
Yes, I must confess.
I think first I'd like to take a look at the musician's gallery, if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, of course. Would you excuse us, darling?
All right, Alec.
It's in the dining hall here.
They must have been very hospitable people in those days. 50 or 60 people could eat at that table.
Yes, Doctor. Needless to remark, we hardly ever use the room nowadays. There's the musician's gallery, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, yes, I see. How do we get up there?
I'll show you. See, there's a stone staircase behind this tapestry here. Follow me. Watch your step. It's quite narrow, rather dark.
Watch your head, Watson, old chap.
Oh, don't worry about me, Holmes. I'm perfect. Oh, I say. Must have built these stairs for pygmies.
Oh, yes. Here we are, gentlemen. This is the musician's gallery.
By Jove. It must have made a pretty picture in the days gone by. A little string orchestra fiddling away up here and tumble out the Scottish nobility bobbing and floating round in the intricacies of a Highland schottische or a stately gavotte or something.
Where does that door lead to?
To the bedroom wing.
And that's where the ghost appeared from the other night, I suppose.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Uh-huh. The door's ajar. You generally keep this door unlocked, sir?
Why, no. But the key mysteriously disappeared about a week ago. James is having a new one made. So I must remind him about that.
Alec, where are you?
Oh, we're up here, Walter. We're coming down. That's Walter McMorris. My dead cousin's son.
Poor fellow, this must be a dreadful day for him.
Yes, I'm afraid this is going to be a rather painful interview. Oh, hello, Walter. This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do?
Sherlock Holmes, sir. I've heard about you and your friend, Dr. Watson.
Walter, old man, I'm dreadfully sorry about your father.
Are you now? Isn't that nice of you? Well, you'll be sorry enough when you hear that I'm going to take you to court and prove that I'm the real Earl of Lochnair.
Why, Walter, you're out of your mind.
Am I? No. Father was out of his because he kept quiet all these years. But I'm going to have my rights. I've looked up the records. I've had genealogists working for months. And I've got all the facts that prove you're an imposter.
Oh, man, what are you talking about?
You know well enough. When Sherlock Holmes here sent your great-uncle to the gallows 20 years ago, the title and estate should have come to my father. When I leave here tomorrow, I'm going straight to the finest lawyer in London.
Man, if you believe this, why have you said nothing about it till now?
Because I'm smart. I found out a thing or two since I've been staying here. And one of the things I found out is that your precious fiancée and her brother wouldn't look twice at you if it weren't for your money and the title.
Shut up.
You'll find out. She's a smart little filly, and she knows what kind of a track she's running on.
You got it!
My compliments, sir. A very professional uppercut.
Yes, and a very well-deserved one. Offensive scoundrel.
Sorry about this. Please don't say anything in front of Betty. It'd only upset her.
I quite understand. Come along, Watson. Let's go and find our rooms.
Holmes, it's nearly dinner time. Why are we wandering about here in the dark instead of having a glass of sherry with the others in the library?
I'm a conscientious practitioner, Watson. I like to earn my fees. It occurred to me that a further examination of this dining hall might prove profitable.
Well, personally, Holmes, I think you're wasting your time on this case.
What makes you think that, old chap?
It's perfectly obvious that young American fellow was impersonating the ghost a few nights ago. He knew his father was going to die, and he wanted to build up the legend so as to make his own claim seem more believable.
Well, that's very sound reasoning, Watson. Though to be logical in his deception, he should repeat the performance now that his father is dead.
Well, ghosts only walk at midnight, so why don't we go and have a glass of sherry? Shh. What is it, Holmes?
Someone's coming in from the library. The lighted candle.
Yes? Who is it?
It's me, Mrs. McClintock, the housekeeper.
Oh, gracious me, you gave me quite a start.
I heard voices and I knew the candles were not alight in here, so I came in to see who it was. You're watching for the ghost, I suppose. Well, you'll no be disappointed, gentlemen, though you may see more than you bargained for. Those that meddle with ghostly things they dinna comprehend are playing with something much more dangerous than fire. Fire burns. But the shades on dead people...
Holmes! Look up there in the gallery. The door's opening. It's the ghost.
Aye, here he comes, the poor body. See the armor on him, and the way he's dragging one leg behind him.
Yes, it's really quite an effective impersonation. And the twilight provides most appropriate lighting for his play acting, too.
You mean it's the young American?
Of course.
Look behind him. There's another figure.
Yes. Dressed in the same kind of armor and carrying a sword. James afoot, Watson.
The ghost has seen him. He's turning. The second figure's raising his sword.
Look out!
Great heavens! He's knocked him through the railings. That must be a 20-foot fall.
Come on, old fellow. Help me open his visor.
Just a minute.
Yes. It's Walter McMorris, the American. Though from the angle of his head, I would suggest that it might be the late Walter McMorris, eh, Watson?
He's dead, all right, Holmes. Neck broken.
Meanwhile, the second figure has been able to slip back through that wall and escape us. Come on, he was dressed in armor. He can't go very fast. Perhaps we can overtake him.
Dr. Watson's story will continue in just a few seconds, which is all the time I need to tell you about Petri California Muscatel. Ever try Petri Muscatel? It's a wine that looks like sheer gold, and it's made from big, plump, juicy Muscat grapes. Boy, pop one of those Muscat grapes into your mouth, and you know you've got something delicious. You know that. And you get the same flavor in Petri Muscatel. It's a perfect wine to serve a lady. Women love it. And that best time to serve it is after dinner or on a Sunday afternoon, you know, times like that. But just make sure it's Petri Muscatel, because that's the way to make sure it's going to be good. Remember, Petri. And now back to tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure and the story of the Limping Ghost of Lochnair.
Confound it, Holmes. There's no trace of the ghost in the musician's gallery.
We gave him too much of a start, I'm afraid.
Of course you didn't find him. You'll never find him because he's not mortal.
Mrs. McClintock, is the original suit of armor, the one worn by the first Earl of Lochnair, still in the castle?
Aye, sir. It's in the library through that door there. I'll take you to it.
Don't bother, thank you. We'll find it. Come on, Watson. Bring that candle with you.
Right, you Holmes.
If you know what's good for you, you'll stop dabbling in that as you dinner really can.
Holmes, what do you make of the second ghost?
Another imposter, obviously.
But who could it have been?
That's what we have to find out, old chap. Undoubtedly someone knew that the American Walter McMorris was impersonating the ghost and used this macabre method to kill him.
But why kill him?
Possibly his claims to the title and estate were valid. Or perhaps some fanatic was so devoted to the Lochnair legend that he assumed the role of ghost and killed him for his sacrilege. Hold the candle a little higher, will you, old chap?
Yeah. Hello. Here's a suit of armor, Holmes. Lying in a heap on the floor.
Oh, on the floor, eh? Whereas it obviously belongs on that stand over there.
It's perfectly clear what's happened. The second figure used this armor and slipped it back in here while we were examining the dead man.
Possibly, Watson, possibly. At least this armor gives us a definite clue. But it limits the field of possible suspects.
How do you mean, Holmes?
Well, it's an interesting fact that the human race has grown definitely larger in the past 400 years. Very few modern men can wear authentic ancient armor like this. For example, take the first item on the top of the heap lying on the floor here. These gauntlets of chain mail. Try them on.
Well, much too small for
Exactly.
me.
Neither you nor I could have worn this suit.
No, nor could young Nolan, the estate agent.
Whereas his sister could have done.
Yes, so could Thomas the butler. He's a small fellow.
And if it comes to that, Watson, our distinguished client, the young Earl of Lochnair, is himself a small man.
By Jove, so he is. And he might easily have had a motive. Young McMorris had disputed his right to the title earlier in the day.
But we mustn't jump to conclusions. Nevertheless, you see what valuable evidence this armor has become.
Hello. It sounds as if the rest of the party are on the scene.
Yes, I suggest that we join them without making any reference to this suit of armor. Remember, old chap, one of them in there is a murderer. And we may have to set a trap to catch him.
Are you sure he's dead, Dr. Watson?
There's no doubt about it. His neck was broken instantly by the fall.
It's dreadful. Father and son both dying on the same day.
And you say the real ghost came up behind him, Mr. Holmes, and struck him so they crashed through the railing up there.
I said another figure dressed in armor killed him, Mr. Nolan.
'Twas a real ghost. I saw him with my own two eyes. He killed that man for trying to bring shame on the name of Lochnair.
Shouldn't we get into touch with the police?
How can I get a message to them tonight? Have you looked outside? We're almost completely snowed in.
Snowed in. Oh, Alec, I'm frightened.
Hush, darling. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore.
No, at least we have the assurance that the ghost will not limp again.
Why?
Well, the murderer has no further motive for impersonating the ghost. To walk now would be to support the dead American's claims. No. We shall spend a quiet night, and tomorrow I shall communicate with the proper authorities as to my quite definite notions regarding the murderer's identity.
But if the ghost should walk again, Mr. Holmes?
Well, then, sir, I shall know that at last I've encountered a truly supernatural crime and shall retire from the practice of detection.
It's nearly 2 o'clock. You still over there by the window, puffing away that pipe of yours? You know, I can't help feeling that young McMorris knows a great deal more than he told us. A great deal more. There's a shifty look about him I don't like. Never did trust a fellow who couldn't look you squarely in the eye. Don't you feel the same way, Holmes? Holmes, Holmes, where are you? Holmes!
What, Watson?
Where have you been? I thought you were over there by the window. Been talking to myself.
Never mind that, old chap. Get your slippers on and a dressing gown. We're on the last lap of this strange, eventful tragedy.
Oh, thank the Lord for that. Perhaps I can get some sleep. Holmes, where have you been?
I went to the musicians' gallery and baited the trap. Now it's ready to spring. Don't dawdle, Watson. Come on, come on.
I'm not dawdling. What do you mean you baited a trap?
You'll see for yourself in a few moments. As a matter of fact, I really baited it when I said downstairs that if a real ghost should walk again, I would retire from the practice of detection.
I didn't understand your saying that myself.
Well, I was tempting the murderer to show his hand once more. Come on, please.
Where are we going?
To wait behind the curtain at the foot of the stairs leading to the musicians' gallery. And I hope we don't have to wait very long.
Holmes, I'm getting a crick in my neck trying to peer through this wretched curtain. How much longer do we have to wait?
Until our murderer arrives.
You certain he'll come?
Not certain, but hopeful. Extremely hopeful.
You know who it is, don't you?
Yes. But my proof is too thin for a court of law. I must catch him in the act.
Here he comes.
Splendid.
Let's go up and grab him.
No. They walk into my trap.
He's coming towards the head of the stairs. Oh! Great Scott!
Exactly. A simple piece of wire stretched across the gallery is remarkably effective, even with ghosts. Come on, Watson. Help me off with this visor.
There we are. Good Lord, it's James Nolan.
Exactly.
What happened?
You walked into a simple trap, my friend. I'm afraid the next trap will be more lethal, for it will undoubtedly prove to be the one beneath the gallows.
Now that we're headed back for London, Holmes, perhaps you'll settle one or 2 points in the case that are bothering me quite a bit.
Oh, with pleasure, my dear chap. What are they?
I still don't see what Nolan's motive was in murdering the American.
Oh, that should be obvious. He wanted to ensure that his sister's fiancé would enjoy undisputed title to the name and estates.
Well, how did you know it was Nolan?
When I examined the authentic suit of armor, you see, it was obvious it had never been worn.
But I still don't quite understand.
Oh, come now, old chap. The suit of armor was in a heap on the floor.
Yeah?
And if it had been hastily discarded, and yet, the gauntlets were on top of the pile, you remember?
Well, that's right, they were.
If the suit had really been worn, the gauntlets would have been the first things to have been taken off, and so would have been underneath the pile. Obviously, therefore, the armor had been disarranged in order to make people believe the real ghost had walked.
Yeah.
After the American's death, the suspects were four. Miss Nolan, her brother, Thomas, the butler, and the Earl himself. Well, I ruled out Mrs. McClintock because, you remember, she was standing behind us at the time of the murder.
Well, I'm beginning to understand. All the suspects except Nolan were small enough to have worn the armor.
That's right. Therefore, only he could have pretended to use it.
Pretended? But he did use it.
Oh, no, my dear fellow. Undoubtedly, he procured a similar one of modern manufacture.
An amazing case, Holmes.
An interesting one, at any rate. And once again, old fellow, I'm forcibly reminded of an old Scottish litany.
Scottish litany? Which one's that?
Oh, you remember it. From ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night. Good Lord deliver us.
Well, Doctor, that was really a swell story. You know, for a while there, I was beginning to believe in ghosts.
Well, I'm ashamed to admit it, but at the time, so was I.
You know, this sounds silly, but I bet it would be fun to be one of those legendary English ghosts. You know, go around sticking your nose into everybody's business and playing practical jokes like mad and nobody able to figure out who did it. That would really be fun in a way.
Well, you can go around scaring people all you want to, but not for me. I think a ghost leads a terrible life myself. For instance, a ghost can't have the pleasure of eating a nice, juicy steak.
Yeah, or drinking a glass of really good wine.
Ah, now you're talking, young fellow, my lad.
Petri wine.
Yeah, still talking, young fellow.
You see, when I say good wine, I always mean Petri wine because you can depend on Petri.
I know.
Why, the Petri family has been making wine for generations, handing on down from father to son, all their skill and knowledge and experience. When you realize they started the Petri business way back in the 1800s, well, common sense tells you the Petri family knows practically all there is to know about the fine art of turning luscious grapes into clear, fragrant wine. Yep, whether you're looking for a swell wine to serve before dinner or with dinner or after dinner, for any occasion, you just can't go wrong with a Petri wine because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Now, Doctor, what story are you going to tell us next week?
Well, now, next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a strange adventure that Holmes and I had in the English countryside. It concerns the apparent madness of a certain Colonel Warburton and the puzzling mystery of 2 dead dogs.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure is written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and is based on an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Crooked Man. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Booth through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station.
Oh, the Petri family took the time to bring you such good wine. So when you eat and when you cook, remember Petri wine.
To make good food taste better, remember...
Petri wine.
Did you have any doubt that Holmes was going to get to the bottom of it all? I decided to leave the commercials intact on this one. I think it adds a bit of charm to the story and the atmosphere of the telling. Grove's Bromoquinine sponsored the show for the first 3 seasons, Petri Wine for the 4th and 5th, Kreml Hair Tonic for the show's 6th season, the Trimont Clothing Company for the 7th and 8th seasons, and finally, Petri Wine returned as sponsor for the 9th and final season. Now, personally, having listened to all the surviving broadcasts, I like the Petri spots the best.
J-E-L-L. Oh, the big red letters stand for the Jell-O family. Oh, the big red letters stand for the Jell-O family. That's Jell-O, yum, yum, yum. Jell-O pudding, yum, yum, yum. Jell-O tapioca pudding, yes, sirree.
That was episode number 648, and I hope that you enjoyed Noah Yassi's story, and I want to thank him for sharing it. Please remember to let me know what you think about my Facebook dilemma. Okay? If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.